Well, good morning. I thought I'd read a story that I seem to have found in my big book of stories. God knows what it's about. Judging by the background, there seems to be something about a Barbie doll. There seems to be an omnipotent God pointing at her. What could it all mean? I don't know. Let's find out. Now, the story, oddly enough, is called Barbie the Bitch. It's got my name on it. What did I say? Well, I said the two women in bikinis who lay on towels not 10 yards away from him were goddesses. Howard cast surreptitious glances their way as often as he dared from his own spot on Black's Beach, taking in piece by piece their tan perfection. Both women, in their early 20s, had long, firm legs without cellulite or veins to mar their perfection, flat, strong bellies, slender arms that showed no hint of flabbiness in the triceps, faces that would not have been out of place on a magazine cover. Well, I used to go to Black's Beach in my 20s. They noticed him too. Derision and disgust vied for prominence upon those feminine features. Howard wanted to die from shame. He looked down at his tormentress and tried to keep the whine from his voice. For God's sake, why did you force me to come here? You know how I hate the beach, Howard said. His companion, who sat next to him on the towel, her arms extended rigidly forward, turned her tiny blonde head his way and spoke from a perpetually smiling face. Now, Honeypot, what is our golden rule? She asked. That you are to never, in any way whatsoever, challenge my wishes. You haven't forgotten our rule so soon, have you? No way, he said hurriedly, remembering the punishment she'd inflicted 2 weeks before. But please, at least let me put on a shirt. I'm roasting alive. Well, I can understand that. I never go outside without a shirt. Oh, Dumpling, you've worked so hard all these years to get that body of yours. Think of the many, many meals you've eaten. Think of all the discomfort you put yourself through by stuffing yourself with donuts and cases of Cokes. You've got it. Why not flaunt it? He started to open his mouth to protest, but she bent forward and placed her tiny teeth on his enormous right thigh and bit down lightly. The pain, though not as brilliant as a full-fledged bite would be, still sent electric shivers through his entire body. I'm sorry, he said. That's better. That's the fat boy I've come to know, she replied. Her little head swiveled back to gaze with painted blue eyes upon the waves rolling in 50 feet away. Howard shifted uncomfortably on the beach-sized terry cloth towel he and Barbie sat upon. This towel wasn't an item he'd bought just for the occasion. All his towels were the same size. He needed them to dry his body with after a shower. That's probably not true. He could have used some smaller towels. Above him and everyone else at Black's Beach, the sun beat down in a clear stream. Though the others who'd braved the treacherous slope from the top of Torrey Pines Road down to the shore seemed to Howard to soak up the light and warmth on their tanned, hard bodies, Howard felt his own skin being punctured and crisped by the unaccustomed beating. He hadn't braved direct sunlight since going swimming at the pool of the apartment complex his family lived at when he was 14. A group of teenage lovelies laughed at his flabs even then. Finally, unable to endure their taunts, he fled after only a half hour, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise, for he had already burned. With his vast surface area, the discomfort drove him to soak in a bathtub for 2 days. Knowing the pain ahead of him almost provided the courage to revolt against Barbie. Almost, but not quite. To his left, a party of men and women played volleyball. Howard watched the young men and envied their fluid grace, how strong their arms were, how quickly they moved. Although Howard wasn't yet 30, being forced to watch this evidence of youth's athleticism made him feel nearly decrepit. And of course, the 4 women who played with him made up in the natural elegance of their movements what they lacked in sheer strength. The game paused for a moment as the group descended upon coolers for light beer and diet sodas. 2 of the men and a woman shared a joint. They laughed over a joke Howard couldn't overhear. Boy, those are happy folks, Howard said. We'll go join them, Barbie said. Get up, walk on over there and say hello. Ask to play volleyball with them. You know I can't do that. Oh, that old weight thing again. Don't be shy. I think you'd look delightful jumping around for the volleyball. You'd be the hit of the party. All that jiggling and shaking would get everybody's attention. Howard hung his head and rubbed absently at his unshaven chins. He took a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from the paper sack next to him and swallowed half of it in one bite. He wished the sand would do the same to him. Simply swallow him whole and spit him out into the sanctuary his studio apartment offered. A quick glance at the women to his right added to his discomfort. They were staring and casting giggles his way over the side of him, a grown man with Barbie at his side. Well, who can blame them? He knew what they thought, that unable to attract a real woman, he had resorted to fantasy and carried Barbie with him at all times. They probably were whispering about the sex doll they imagined would be in a closet back home. Well, they clearly don't know he doesn't have any money. Those are about $5,000 right now. There he'd been, waking up in the sofa bed to get ready to go to his job as a clerk at 7-Eleven 3 weeks ago, and felt something hard digging into his side. He'd sat up to find Barbie laying there. Mortification was his first reaction. Who'd sneaked into the apartment to play this joke? Fear was his second reaction, for Barbie spoke. "Hello, big boy. I'm your first girlfriend." He jumped backward and fell heavily to the floor. When he climbed to his feet, Barbie stood on plastic legs at the edge of the bed, holding her arms out to him. "Don't be that way, lover. Aren't I pretty enough for you?" Blubbering in his panic, Howard ran into the bathroom and locked the door. When a soft tap came from the other side, he abandoned his position of ear against wood in favor of cowering on the bathtub. "Howard, baby, I'm a little doll," Barbie called. "I'm what you've secretly prayed for all these lonely, lonely years. Do be a dear and let me in." She scratched at the wood like a cat sharpening her nails on a post. His voice, when found, emerged high and breathless. "Go away." "What? And make you so very unhappy?" "Howard, even if I could leave you, I wouldn't. I am a gift to you, and you're a gift to me. We were made for each other. Now stop being a baby and open the door. You have to go to work." Howard finally stepped from the tub and gingerly turned the doorknob. As soon as he'd opened the door a crack, Barbie slipped through the opening, moving stiffly on her ball-jointed legs. Before he could react, she'd wrapped her arms around his right leg and bit into his calf. The pain rooted him in place, his neck muscles and veins prominent even beneath the folds of fat. He tried to scream. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged as his throat locked from the strain. When she released her grip and stepped back, the Barbie smile firmly in place, she said, "Whenever you treat me badly, I'm going to give you a little love bite. Isn't that nice?" He could only nod in mute terror. Day in and day out, without cease, she tormented him. She knew precisely what to say and how to say it to shred any illusions Howard possessed concerning himself. Barbie made him take her to work, where she whispered insults about his career with 7-Eleven. She laughed about the 15-year-old Ford he drove. She ridiculed his 4XL T-shirts, hee-hawed over his lack of friends, snickered at his evenings watching YouTube and porn while eating microwave chimichangas in the now breached sanctuary of his cheap apartment. Well, that's not a good shot. I love chimichangas. With cheese and Tabasco. She's not a nice woman. In every way, Barbie made his life hell by comparing his own vast imperfections with the healthy, vibrant lives others lived. Others questioned his odd acquisition of a Barbie doll as a constant companion. For although none but Howard could hear her words, and she had not to this point moved when others were watching, they could see her, perched on the edge of the counter next to packages of gum, always facing her owner. His own boss, a kid of 22, confronted him the first day he brought Barbie to the store. "Howard, what's with the doll? Get rid of her." To which Howard could only reply, "I can't." The kid boss nodded sagely and said, "An emotional support doll. I get it," and quietly walked away. Now here Howard sat in full view on a beach crowded with beautiful people, wishing himself invisible because he, a grown man, had Barbie at his side. "Why don't you go swimming?" she asked him. "The water will make you feel light on your feet." "I don't want to swim." "It'll be good for you. Like basting a pig in butter." He groaned. If I walk down to the water, everybody will stare. I'm not as noticeable just sitting. He pictured himself parading before others in his cavernous swimsuit, jiggling and lumbering toward the water like a tortoise before the predatory gaze of the lean, hungry seagulls that surrounded him. His mood plummeted even further. Too bad you're not perfect as I am perfect, Barbie said. I look great in a swimsuit. But you're not alive. That's not a fair comparison. Oh, look at those lovely girls you've been sneaking peeks at over there. They're just darling, aren't they? Or those men playing volleyball. They could be Ken dolls any day. Flesh and blood people with a pride to keep their bodies as nature intended them to look. Then, as Howard hung his head lower in despondency, she said in mock contrition, I'm sorry. Am I being mean? You know you are. Gee whiz, I feel awful. Here, let me give you a love bite to make it all better between us. She quickly leaned over and bit into the tire hanging from his side. He put his heavy head into ham-sized hands and hid his face as he wept from the pain. Once, only once, did he take physical retaliation against Barbie. She'd made a joke 2 weeks back about how he might have been happier if a G.I. Joe doll had been sent to him instead. Without thought, Howard grabbed her from her perch on the side of his sofa and ripped her limbs out. He'd plucked her head from its socket. Then he'd placed the pieces on the rug and stomped on them with all 430 pounds of his fury. You ain't so much, he'd said to the mangled, broken doll. Satisfaction wreathed his face as he gathered the pieces and put them in the communal garbage dumpster outside. Beating the supernatural wasn't all that hard. Minutes later, she'd reappeared on the couch, whole and undamaged. Our first fight. Isn't that romantic, lover boy? She said. Now it's my turn. She leapt to his belly and burrowed with grasping, clawing fingers down past the top of his jeans and into his crotch. Howard grasped her tiny feet and pulled, but too late. She'd already locked onto his testicles with both hands. Trying to pull her off only tore at him. Then as she bit into the skin, a wave of agony so all-encompassing swept over him that he passed out. This proved to not be a blessing. When he awoke seconds later, she bit him again, to the same effect. After the cycle had been repeated to the point where Howard fell in danger of choking upon the vomit which covered his shirt and clogged his throat, Barbie decided to stop. So she gnawed away at his side. He knew better than to push those knife-like teeth away. To his surprise, she abruptly stopped biting. Curious, Howard took his hands away from eyes wet with tears and looked up. One of the two beauties stood over him. Brunette hair, bleached light from the sun, framed her smooth-complexioned, high-cheekbone face. She pushed a lock of the hair away from eyes made larger by artfully applied eyeliner and mascara. Hi, she said. Hello, Howard said. Awe swept over him at the beauty of this woman now seen so close. He felt himself to be a worthless slug seated before this representative of a race of creatures beyond him in every way. She wrinkled her nose, as if something nasty rose from him. My girlfriend and I were just wondering. Well, I don't want to seem mean, but we were curious as to why you're here. Pardon me? Squeaked Howard. We thought at first that maybe you were making a statement of some kind, like saying you're grossly out of shape but refuse to be limited by it. You're large and proud. Then we saw the Barbie doll next to you. Not too many men sit around talking to Barbie dolls, you know. Howard stared blankly at her, heart thudding wildly in his chest and his face about to burst from the rush of blood pressing from beneath. The point is, this goddess explained, that we wondered, aren't you ashamed? She spun around and strutted away. Howard's will to live finally snapped. One instant he was the most miserable of human beings, yet still able to continue his life. The next, he couldn't stand to be alive for another moment. As Howard rose from the towel, Barbie leapt to his chest. Now, what are you doing? She bit into the skin over his breastbone with all the terrible, ripping fury her teeth could inflict. Sit down, this instant, she said. Howard ignored her command. His hands, of their own free will, wrapped around Barbie and tried to pull her off to ease his pain, but his legs carried him to the water. Those who watched saw a grotesquely obese man lumbering to the sea as if drunk, his face contorted terribly, clutching a Barbie doll to his chest like a prized possession. Howard got to the water and continued walking until it reached waist deep. "Go back, you son of a bitch. I'm not done with you yet. I want my revenge in full measure," Barbie screamed. "I was given you as my big chance." Howard emptied his lungs of air, plunged headfirst below the surface, and released Barbie. He jammed his stubby fingers into the sand and held on, keeping himself at the bottom. Opening his mouth, he took gulp after gulp of seawater. What happened? It filled his great belly. It rushed into the void of his lungs. His body coughed and tried to save itself despite his wishes. He overrode the primitive survival instinct and refilled his lungs with the burning seawater. As sight failed, he distantly felt hands, large human hands, trying to pull him up. He only increased his efforts to stay below. The hands slipped away, unable to find enough purchase on his slippery bulk. Howard's body finally obeyed his brain's commands. He died. His consciousness, however, did not. He floated over Black's Beach, disinterestedly watching as several of the men who'd been playing volleyball tugged the lifeless carcass that had formerly housed his spirit back to shore. How pointless, he thought. Let that big pile of meat feed the fish. Another presence made herself known to him. Howard saw her, floating beside him, screeching curses without cease. The spirit that animated Barbie, he surmised. A woman of extraordinary ugliness. Somebody who in her earthly life had been as much a cast out from society as he. Although her words were lost, she clearly had expected to torment him for years and years, not the 3 weeks she'd received. Too bad, he thought, then paid her no more attention as a magnetic force hugged him away. Not up or down, but away. Through the black tunnel he'd always read about, with its glowing figure of light at the end. God is waiting for me, he thought with joy. I am to be accepted, despite my unworthiness, into the house of the Lord. He held spectral hands out and flew into the light's midst. The figure wrapped him within its essence. From the more than human mind flowed waves of malice and disease. The waves flowed around and through Howard's soul, giving him a flashback of his life of rejection by the human community and putting its own special twist of explanation on events he'd long forgotten. All this did you deserve, the voice said. You distorted and perverted the holy vessel I gave you to live within. The woman spoke truth. You should be ashamed. The essence of Howard writhed in disgrace. If you wish to join me, go and do as has been done unto you, the voice said. Until then, you are not my child. I rebuke you. It voided Howard from its mist and sent him spinning back through the tunnel. When he emerged, down he fell. He landed on the nightstand next to a young woman's bed. She lay asleep, her face in the pillow turned his way. Even in the near darkness, the light from the distant moon shining through her window only slightly lifted, he saw her body swelled under the covers like a whale grounded on a crushing shore. He knew, without questioning how he knew, of her entire sad, loveless existence, and of the food she gorged upon to fill the aching void within her heart. A twist of his stiff-necked head allowed Howard to see himself dimly in the mirrored surface of her old-fashioned, glass-fronted alarm clock. A Ken doll gazed back. A perpetual smile graced his bland, blond, handsome features. He turned his head back to the woman and rejoiced. Thank God, he thought. By this woman's suffering unto fitness, I shall earn my entrance into the house of the Lord. Well, that's a nasty little story. It seems to be saying that God only likes fit people, that the muscled God of our imagination is actually how we're supposed to be. And if you let yourself get out of shape, God loves you a little bit less. You know, I'm sure glad that is just a nasty bit of fiction and in no way reality. Imagine if Barbie could be haunting you like that.
Hello, big boy. I've been sent to you.
Oh, hell.